Hey guys, welcome to the second video. Today I'll be introducing you guys to some variable types. So let's open up another script. And let's just save it. I'm going to call it vid2. You guys can call it whatever you would like. Okay, and now it's always a good idea to clear your command window and workspace. And I'll explain that in a second. So the reason that we want to clear our command window and workspace is just so that we start from a clean slate whenever we run our program. So clear clears our workspace and that removes any variables that were previously saved in our workspace. So if we've got 07 and we go clear, it removes all the variables in there. And that just allows us to run our program and make sure that no variables previously saved in our workspace could interfere with our program. So it's just a good idea to start from scratch. I'd like to introduce you guys to scalars, to vectors and arrays, and then also to matrices. Okay? Now quite simply, scalars are just single values. They're just one value saved in a single variable. So my scalar can be 7, can be anything you would like. It can even be pi. Now MATLAB has got this variable pi, which is just a constant. Okay, so it could be pi divided by 4 if you would like. Okay, so we press Command Enter, we run, and we see that my scalar is now saved inside the workspace. Now if you're interested, in the previous video, these yellow highlights were appearing around the equal signs. And if we read the little message that pops up when we hover over it, it says that we can terminate the statement with a semicolon, which just suppresses the output. What does that mean? Well, it means that if we put a semicolon after the statement, the program will still run exactly as it did before, except the value, this output, this assignment, won't be saved to the command window. Okay? And so it's just purely done for display purposes. It doesn't change the function of the program at all. It just reduces the clutter in the command window. So if we press Command Enter now, you see that the program still runs. It just doesn't print to the command window. Okay, so a scalar is just a single value saved to a variable. Okay? Now, vectors and arrays are an extra dimension. Instead of just being a point, a single value, it's now a list of things. It's a list of values. Okay, so my array are just a list of things. So we use this convention over here, these square brackets, as a way of containing our list. So we can add a whole bunch of values in here. Okay? So if I run that, you see now my array has all these values stored inside it. So just to point out that these are square brackets, not the round brackets. Those have a different purpose here in MATLAB. Once we put these square brackets around a set of values, they're saved as an array. Now there's a bit of a convention between what a vector is and what an array is. Okay, so we can copy this exact same content. Now an array in MATLAB is normally a list of things that are displayed horizontally. So if we have a look at the dimensions over here, we've got 1 row and 5 columns. This is a list of things. A list. It's 1 row and there's 5 elements, 1 in each column. And if we want to create our vector, instead of separating it with a space or alternatively even commas, we now separate them with a semicolon. Okay? And so if we run this now, we see that my array is displayed horizontally and my vector is displayed vertically. If you're just storing a list of things, it doesn't really matter which one of these two you choose. Okay? So there we go, my array and my vector. And I'll show you guys how we can actually access the values inside here as well. So So these are a list of values, and we can actually access values in here by telling MATLAB what index we would like to have a look at. So the index starts at 1 in MATLAB, so it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the value at the 5th index is 9 in both of these variables. Okay. So we use the round brackets to index. If we have a look at there, remember if we don't have an output that we save an operation to, then just by default it's saved to ans. If we have a look at the 5th element, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have the value 9. Okay, so we can index values. Alternatively, if we add an extra element at the end of this list, we can make sure that we always index the very end of our list with the keyword end. Okay. Now, why is it important to be able to access variables? And the reason is because sometimes we actually want to change the value inside our list. Okay, so we can change values. So we can go my array. Let's say I want to change the last value to be 0. We can do so. It's an AEC. My array was previously, let's just suppress all these other outputs. So we've got my original list. The last element was previously 11. And you can see that I accessed the last element and then I set its value to be 0. Okay? So we can do that for single values. We can set individual values in a list. Or alternatively, we can also change a range of values in a list. So let's say that we want to set the first 3 values in our list to be 5. Well, how would we do this? Well, we're going to tell MATLAB that we want to index the first through to the 3rd element, so the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd element, and then we're going to set those values to be 5. So we start with 1, and this colon operator just tells MATLAB everything up until the 3rd value. So if we come in here and we go 1, 3, MATLAB interprets that as create a list starting at 1, ending at 3. So there we go. So it creates these integer values starting at 1, ending at 3. And so we're indexing the 1st element, the 2nd element, and 3rd element. We're going to set these ones to 5. There we go. And there you go. So we have our original array, grab this final element, we set it to be 0, and then we grab the first 3 elements and set them to 5. There we go. Okay, so where scalars are just a point, and a vector and array are a list of things, matrices have an extra dimension. So arrays are horizontal lists, so they've got multiple columns per one row, and vectors have one column and multiple rows. If we have a look over here at our sizes, if you don't have the sizes displayed, you can go right click and then add size as one of the properties you want to have a look at your variables. There we go. So my array is 1 row, 6 columns. My vector is 6 rows, 1 column. Matrices have 2 dimensions. So they're multiple rows and multiple columns. And they can be larger than that. They can be 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, but we're just going to stick to 2-dimensional at the moment. Multiple rows and multiple columns. So my matrix. Okay. So again, we create this list using square brackets. However, we're now going to specify that we have multiple dimensions, and I'll show you how we do that. Okay, so we create a matrix by doing what we did before. So we first define our rows. Okay, so we've got 1 row, 2 row, 3 rows. Now you don't have to separate the elements, the different rows with an enter, but I like doing so just to make it obvious how the matrix will look. So we specify the rows. These are the elements in my first row, just as we did with my array. And then we use this colon to indicate the last element, the end of our row. Now it's important to note that you have to have an equal number of elements in each row and column. So in each column here we've got 4 elements, and each row here we've got 5 elements. Okay, so we press Ctrl Enter, and there you go, there's my matrix. Now I'll just quickly show you guys how we would index a matrix. And how we're going to set values in a matrix. So we can index just like we did before. The first element is this one over here. So you can see 1, we've got our very first element. Okay, and if we just want to index in terms of which element we want to look at, MATLAB indexes matrices column-wise. So the first element is this first one, and then we go second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and then you keep looping like so. Or alternatively, what we can do is we can kind of tell MATLAB where in this matrix we want to have a look at, which row and which column. So if we want to index this 4 over here, this would be the 3rd row, the 3rd column. And if we have a look at the way that this matrix is stored, it's 4 rows, 5 columns. So we always tell MATLAB the rows first and then the columns. So it'd be 3, 3. There goes my matrix. There we go. That's our 4th element. If I want to grab the 6, there we go. Okay, so now if we want to set values, we're going to follow the exact same process we had before. Let's say I want to change this 9 to a 3. First row, 5th column, if you remember, and the keyword for the very last element in that dimension. So first row, very last element in the column, number 9. We want to set it to 0. There we go. Let's say I wanted to change all the values that are above 5 to the value 2. We can also do that. And we don't have to manually go through and track where the values are that's greater than 5. We can actually create this thing that's called a logical map. And I'm just going to call it logical map just to make it obvious to you. But what we do is we can ask a question. So we can go, my matrix, where are the elements greater than 5? And if we run this, save to my logical map now, we have this map where zeros indicate false or no, and 1 indicates yes or true. Okay, so we can have a look here. What's happened is MATLAB has gone, Is 1 greater than 5? No. 3? 4? Is 7 greater than 5? Yes, it is. Remember we changed the value 9 to 0, so 0 is less than 5, but 6 is not. 9, and there you go. And what can we do with this? Well, we can use this to tell MATLAB we want to change these values to, I forgot what we said, but let's say 2. So we can go my matrix. Now what do we want to index? Well, we want to index these values. Okay, so imagine that you're at a wall, you've got a template, and you've got a spray can. So you've got this template up against the wall, and when you're spraying, what you're essentially doing is this, you've got a mask, so this is where you won't be spraying, but you'll be spraying over these open areas over here. So these are the values that we're going to change. So this is just a mask for the values we want to change. Logic on that. Changing it to 2s. And there you go. So we've changed all the values that were greater than 5 to 2. Okay. Thanks, guys.